attitude as opposed to human parents. When you talk about Joseph, you're talking about praise. When you're talking about Mary, you're talking about conflict, or you're talking about bitterness, but also wisdom. So when we look at the seed of praise entering the womb of bitterness and wisdom, the way it exits that womb is determined by the attitude of the seed and the one who has the womb. So when the womb, Mary made declaration, when she heard internally the purpose of the seed being in her womb, she said, let it be as it has been spoken. That affirmed that the seed coming out of her womb would not be one filled with bitterness, but it would be one filled with praise and wisdom. And that's what this miraculous birth is actually talking about. And the miracle of it all is intertwined with the recognition by the woman and the acceptance by the male. Because if you look at that story, what you actually see is an elevation of the feminine energy, and not ignoring the masculine, but the masculine deferred to the feminine, because Joseph says virtually nothing in terms of what's going to mold the life that's in this womb. It is the female who does that, and that speaks volumes. Because when you, and most of you heard the word Shekinah in reference to God's glory, but in essence, but for real, Shekinah talks about, it means the spirit, the feminine aspect of the Creator. That's what the Shekinah is. And Mary was representative of that Shekinah and that feminine energy of the Shekinah. And Joseph was representative of the seed of Elohim. And by virtue of deference to the womb, the results of that are the fruit of that was Yeshua of Jesus. And as a result, we see that it is written about him that when he was reviled, he reviled not again. In other words, when people went off on him, he didn't go off on them. He didn't give tit for tat. So that is spoken of by virtue of the name of the womb that carried. So when we look at it spiritually, that's when we have to look at it on the basis of that, as opposed to the other. Now,
I have a question, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Because this is the very first time I'm really capturing what you said about Mary not only representing bitterness, but also wisdom. And I don't mean it's the first time the femininity what it represents, but so Mary had the opportunity then to have a seed that was bitter.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit more? Because that's really...
Well, if Mary had not had opportunity to have a seed that was bitter, then the seed would not have had free will. And free will is not about coercion or domination. Free will is about choice. So, and that again speaks to the idea of the seed having been born as we are, and making the decision to journey towards beginning or to move in the direction of finding out or who he is. So when we look at that from the perspective of the whole story of the birth, we began to see that the attitude of a woman to this day has a bearing on the seed that's in her womb, and that was no different. So that's, Any other questions about that? See, one of the other questions the kids asked was about Christmas. You know, explain Christmas and holidays and stuff. And to be honest with you, Christmas has absolutely nothing to do with Jesus. It doesn't. Christmas was instant, and if you don't have to go to the Bible to find it. You can go to the encyclopedia and look at the history of Christmas, and it will tell you that Christmas came out of a desire to co-opt some indigenous people into a religion, and Ahab and Jezebel. What that woman? You know the dude that they say that will come back at the solar. What was his name? Nimrod. The son was Tammuz. Tammuz, yeah. Nimrod, they had a son named Tammuz, and he died. And they were expecting him to come back or to be reborn during the winter solstice. And when the Catholics began to expand into the area that's now known as Turkey, that's when they began to incorporate the story of Tammuz into the scriptures, and it was first called the Mass of Christ. And it was no different than any other Mass that was offered in the Catholic Church. But as it grew, it became known as Christmas. When the country was first settled, you could be arrested in Massachusetts, where in the New England states, you could be arrested for celebrating Christmas because it was viewed as a pagan holiday because of those reasons. And it was only recently, well, America's a young country, so in recent history, that those laws were taken off of the books. And if you look at the story of the birth, you will begin to see that the time that he would have been born, there would not have been sheep out in the pastures because it was the wrong time of the year for sheep to be in pastures. That was the time of the year that everyone brought their sheep in to protect them for the harsh winter that they were going to face during that period of time. So right now, I believe that what happened is that a lot of things were allowed to progress as they did until such a time when people were truly searching for a resurrection of truth. And what happened in essence is that the whole concept was kept alive so that when you search for this truth, it would find you as opposed to you finding it. So when we look at the Christmas story now, it is more about what you can buy and give than it is about what it was supposed to be about from the beginning. So the idea of Christmas, if you really, really think about the meaning of it, Messiah's Mass, what does that mean? Because Christ is not his last name. So what does that mean? Christ comes from the Greek Christos, which was translated from the Hebraic Meshach. Is it Meshach? It's close enough, I think. But anyway, that's where it came from. And Messiah is the consciousness that brings you to an awareness of self, resulting in your deliverance. So the manifestation of this consciousness was infused into the one whose name was Jesus. And the infusion came not by force, but by his desire to journey in the spiritual sense. And so what we have to do when we look at the birth, we can't truly speak of the birth in a manner that will resurrect truth without uncovering the untruth about what it represents. So and then again, if you look at all of the accoutrements that are employed in the expression in celebrating this holiday, you will find that the scripture speaks totally against it. I mean, when you talk about the Christmas tree and the lights, you can go into Ezekiel, and it talks about the Lord was the one who put lights upon a tree. You can look at, now I've said the timeline doesn't fit, but also you can look at the concept of someone being born with the expectation of you being able to do the same thing he did, but he was born at a greater level of divinity than you. That would be like me. Well, let me put it this way. That would be like Dana expecting me to do an install for a heating unit, and I don't know where to start. So he convinced me that I can do an install with a heating unit, and I go out there and I do it, and they find me on the ground because I touched the wrong wire or something. That's what's happening with this whole idea of Christmas. All of the power of it, all the essence and the sense of belonging is taken away from who Jesus is and the birth canal that he came through. All the meaning is taken away and shifted to gifts and trees and mangers and nativity scenes, those kind of things. If you really want to do the nativity scene and be realistic about it, you can't let it smell like it smells. I mean, if you really want to, you know what I'm saying? Because you got to understand what was in that statement. So what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that the truth that he represented, that he came into the world to pursue, what it means to us is that we are that stable. The filth of that stable is the attitude that we present as men. And regardless of how we try to clean them up, they remain the same. But by virtue of hope, when we come to a realization of who we are, we know in the midst of that filth that's in that stadium, of that stable, which is us, there is a seed called Yeshua. There is a seed that is messianic in nature. There is a seed that grants us not only opportunity but ability, grants us the power and the desire to allow it to grow to fruition. And when it does grow to fruition, or when we recognize it's there, that is the whole idea of the wilderness procedure. That's when he went to Egypt. That represents the wilderness that you go into. You know, when you say you want to change your life, and everything seems to go wrong in your life. You know, all the things that you thought that you had walked away from are right in your face. Well, those ideas, those concepts, those desires, those emotions, that's Egypt. That's your Egypt. And you have to face your Egypt in order to not only transcend it, but to transcend the wilderness that you're in. So the whole birth goes from Mary and Joseph representing attitudes to us of who we are today. And every moment that we speak with total desire for truth, the birth is continuously taking place in our lives. And it's not something that happens once. It happens continuously. Because no matter who you are, or no matter who we purport ourselves to be, there is never a time when we have arrived at a place where we don't need further cleansing. Never. So I hope you can see that the birth thing in relationship to Christmas, and in a sense another holidays. So let me just tack on to the end of that. New Year's. New Year's the spiritual understanding or acceptance of the new year is a spiritual transition or a spiritual sense of growth. The whole idea of watch night services came from Babylon. And the Babylonians, during the winter solstice, when they concluded, they were worshippers, actually worshippers of the elements, like the moon. They worshiped the sun. That's where sunrise service came from. But they represented, they worshiped the moon, and they used it as a time to offer to the gods, make an offering to God, so that when the spring came, the lands would be fertile, the grounds would be fertile, and would bring forth a harvest. That's where it came from. So that also was incorporated into post-Constantine Christianity in order to bring indigenous people into the fold. And we can go down the line with all the holidays, and again, you don't have to necessarily find them in the scripture. If you look at the history of them, they will tell you where they came from. It is very, very clear where they came from. This was and still is another form of manipulation. And when you get caught up in it, especially if you get caught up in the essence of it all, and the way they usually get people caught up in it is right after Thanksgiving when you go to the mall and you hear Christmas music. Music does influence you. It puts you in the Christmas spirit. And it gives you the spirit to give. But what you end up doing is giving to somebody all the year because you got stuff you couldn't afford. Trying to be impressive or trying to feed a desire that is ungodly. So we have to look at all of these expressions from a scriptural perspective, and then we begin to see that these things are constantly happening, are constantly taking place inside of us in terms of the birth, in terms of the wilderness experience, etc.
Why is it that, like when you talk about,
Why is it?
when you talk about Christmas, when you talk about Christmas and giving, why is it that it's so hard for, like, I can spend X amount of dollars on somebody that I care about, but I can see somebody laying in the street and I can't, I question whether or not this person is sitting there with a camera and asking for money. I can question, do he really need this? And the person that I've spent all this money on, they don't need it. I'm just, not giving it, but I can't, see the need to give to somebody that actually might need it.
That's ego.
You have to look at the intent of why you give it. Are you giving to this person or not? You're saying Are you giving to this person because you expect to give to this person? Or are you giving to this person because you're going to be held in a certain light by them? Or are you giving to this person genuinely because you're just trying to meet a need? And I think the whole concept of Christmas is what it is and how you are pretty much, I guess, told to give, or what is actually put out about giving. It's not about the latter; it's more so about the former. And so that's the big difference with that right there.
It is spiritual coercion.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes you're told not to give to certain people, for whatever reason, And so sometimes you believe that. Sometimes your family and friends say, "Don't, you shouldn't have given anything." But I found for me, they just give. You don't look for anything. Some people look for strings, attach strings to it so they can get something back. But you don't look for anything back. You never.
It's kind of like you always question, should I give this person this?
But yeah, I think that's maybe from
if I'm
just the way
giving
we were
it to
trained.
you, what you do with it, that's on you.
Yeah.
But
It's not giving. When you do that, you invest it. You're looking for something back. That's an investment. When you give, it doesn't matter what happens to you. Because if giving separates you from the gift. If I give you something and you don't take care of it, and I get upset with you, I didn't give it, I'm still attached to it. That's the most dangerous thing that happens in church when it comes to time. The worst thing can happen in the church is for you to have a church meeting and vote on a budget. Giving is supposed to be like a heave offering. Tithe is a heave offering. Once it separates from you, you have nothing to do with it. In the moment that you take something else to do with it, you have made the statement that I did not give this to you. So give you. This is my saying about that, and this is what I truly believe. You don't ever give. You become a giver. You are a giver. You don't see if you give, that means that you don't have to. But if you are a giver, that means you don't have a choice. You just do it. Now, as far as Linda talked about someone being on the corner, you have to feel that. Because there are times when you are not supposed to do that. Because you become a codependent. Sometimes you are not, it may be that I'm not supposed to give to George. He's supposed to find his own way. But I may give to Damon and he has more than George. Because I have to bring love and kindness into the earth. And that's what giving does. You have to be sensitive enough to feel it. You can't give to someone simply because they're sitting there because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're doing it to make you feel good. So it has nothing to do with the person. We, like you said earlier, we've been taught that way. Our whole sense of reality has been warped by the society that we live in, and we have to some kind of way, pull that thing back into check.
Other questions? Because I want to follow up on something as relates to the feminine and masculine energies. We talked about why Jesus needed a mother and father. So what are the implications for us today in terms of feminine and masculine energies and the roles of feminine and masculine energy in this earth, this realm of physicality?
Talk about it from the perspective that it has nothing to do with you being male or female.
Okay, go ahead, Ron. Oh, well, Nick can help you out, and all of us.
Part of the reason this is coming up is because I think at some point, probably right now, we'll address homosexuality, because what that really is directing us to is to the reality of what the masculine and the feminine actually are. And the masculine and feminine roles are exactly that. They are roles that we agree to because we are willing to take on a certain responsibility in this lifetime. And there's gray area and fuzziness around what those things are, and that has to do with our own development and our own understanding of who and what we are. So in an individual, there are both masculine and feminine. You know how you have two hemispheres of your brain, the right side and the left side, and it said that the right side is feminine, or has more feminine characteristics, and the left side has more masculine characteristics. I believe that's correct. So you are in possession of both masculine and feminine, and yet on the exterior you are one or the other, or both, or neither, possibly. So whichever characteristics you most naturally lean towards are the one that you are those that you display in terms of your, we would say, sexual preference, or those that you display in terms of your sexuality. So when we look at a homosexual relationship, we're actually looking at a relationship that exists within us, reflected outside of us. So if we don't get it right, or get the relationship in ourselves between the masculine and feminine balanced and correct, then the universe and nature itself will try every avenue possible in order to balance that relationship out. Because even in a homosexual relationship, there is a masculine and feminine dynamic. So you can't escape from it. I believe a lot of what we are seeing is meant to get us to get over our own egotistical response to that. Because definitely being brought up in a more conservative or being brought up in a church environment, when you see stuff like that, you just feel like, okay, you reflexively respond to it out of your own ego and not necessarily looking at it to see it for what it is. And I think we mentioned it earlier, we in no way are allowed to treat other human beings like less than human beings. And we have to accept their relationship as something that is in us as well, as a part of us, because it is a part of us. And when we do that, we can transcend our own egotistical tendency to screw up the relationship between the male and female within us. And when we do that, we can get at the real issue, which is we are being directed to by seeing that relationship on the outside of us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Ms. Clance has one. You talked about we have to get it right. So the question then is, what does a balanced feminine and masculine energy relationship look like? And I don't mean balance as relates to everything is just right, because being equal is not necessarily balanced.
I believe it has to do with wherever you feel most comfortable in terms of the role that you feel you are here to play. Ultimately, that role is to understand who and what you are, or our role is to understand who and what we are. But within that process, there are different aspects of ourselves that we have to learn how to master and bring to purify, I guess you could say. So, for example, if I am male, then there are a certain set of responsibilities I have subconsciously agreed to learn how to master in this lifetime. If I was female, then that would be a certain set of responsibilities that I would have to learn how to master within my lifetime. So in terms of what that balanced relationship looks like, it may not be that it's exactly the same. And it's not the same because male and female, by definition, are not the same. We have different responsibilities. So what we tend to do is egotistically place limits on what those responsibilities can be, however. So an extreme example would be women can't vote because they're women. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all if you think about it. But what that is an egotistical response from the masculine half of those responsibilities, placing limitations on the feminine that don't need to be there in reality. So we screw it up. We screw up that relationship. And we have to learn to let go of our own egotistical response to things that we see, because our own egotistical response does not direct us to the reality of what those things are.
Does it get down to the right or wrong? Does it get to that point? Good, evil, yin, yang? I mean, is it ever a point where there's no compromise?
Can I address that? The reason I want to address that is because I want to go back to the origin. When Nick made reference to what's manifested and reflective of what's happening in us, and if we don't get it right, if we can understand what it is that we need to get right, then we can begin to see if there is a yin and a yang, a right and wrong. Let's understand what the scriptures say in terms of the hidden, the mysteries. The whole concept of what resulted in homosexuality can be found in Genesis. If you go Genesis 2 and 20, it says that for Adam, the last sentence says, for Adam there was not found an helpmeet for him. The word help is not clearly there. Meat is, and the word meat from the Hebraic understanding means to provide, to protect, to surround. So, if the Adam needs something to surround him, what is this that surrounds him? If the helpmeet that surrounds him turns out to be feminine, because that's what it is, he brought feminine energy to him. Isha. That's what he brought to him. So, that being the case, then if you can see the masculine energy, Adam, being surrounded by the feminine energy, then a nurturing of sorts was supposed to take place in order for this entity to become what it was created to be. But the scripture says that what happened? Yahweh Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall over him. When he went into the sleep, he never woke up. If you read that, there is no indication that he woke up. And even when you read the part where he said, or he brought to him, that's all in his trance, because the word sleep means he went into a deep trance. Now, while in that trance, he made decisions. We made decisions. The decision we made was to separate from Father, Mother, to separate from our Creator, and cleave to what we perceived to be something separate from us, a woman. When in actuality we saw the feminine energy as something surrounding us. But what happened as a result of that, what happened as a result of that is the masculine became dominant. And the masculine threw the feminine under the bus. When the masculine said, it wasn't me, it's that woman you gave me. At that point, the masculine started making decisions that benefited him. Women can't vote. Men write theology. Women don't. Men don't accept women's opinions about much of anything until they get in trouble. Households where men dominate and women that have nothing to say are usually very unstable. When that happened, the masculine surrounded the masculine. Can you see that? As opposed to the feminine surrounded the masculine and then working as a unit, the masculine surrounded the masculine. The masculine began to nurture what the scripture said. The masculine began to nurture the energy as opposed to allowing the feminine to nurture the energy. Can you see that? Hello? So the masculine began to nurture it, and as a result of that, the masculine began to nurture itself. And what the manifestation of that, now in the spiritual, this is happening. But the manifestation in the physical is homosexuality. Now, if you are asking if homosexuality is right or wrong in terms of its manifestation, it is neither right nor wrong. If you are asking if homosexuality is wrong in terms of the spiritual connotation, absolutely. That's what we have to correct. We have to elevate the feminine, allow the feminine to be who the feminine is. Because the problem has been that we have elevated the feminine when it's beneficial and began to degrade them when we felt that it was not. A classic understanding of that is when we began talking about, and we're going to talk about financial great faith, when we began talking about feminine and masculine energy in this regard, what we began to see was the powers, the energy in the other world, the negative energy was antagonized by it, and it began to manifest as a political journey towards ending women's rights in terms of means of productivity. That's what we're seeing playing out in politics.
Pastor, not only there, it began several years ago when we started seeing things in the Arab world
Yes.
Where heretofore you would never hear women up, just coming as one and demonstrating. And here you have these women out in the street, literally, in the Arab countries where their husbands can kill them if they want to, if they choose to. And things like that. The World Conference for Women then came up. And so things that you would never see ordinarily, not only locally as it relates to what's happening in politics and trying to have control over women's bodies, but even from a larger global perspective. So what we're saying is what we do does not affect us. So, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that wasn't interrupt. It's an addition. So before I just open it up, this is what I'm trying to say. I'll help you to see that when we see it manifested here, it is the Creator saying to us, there is a dire need for a course change in the spiritual. And if we do not institute that course correction, things do not get better. They get worse. So it's not it's not either being on that, it's just that.
I just want to say, isn't that a choice? I mean, we understand the natural femininity of a man. I mean, I can shed tears as well. Does it mean I'm feminine? But yeah, is it a feminine quality? Is it identified in society as such? Yeah, maybe, depending. But what I'm saying is the act of sexual relations. I think we have a choice that God is allowing us to have, that we can cross the line. And in the cults, it almost disgraces a person, or it's held as a ritual to knock your, whatever they try to break you or get you to do what is defiled under the eyes of God. Anything that you do in an occult is the opposite of what we are being asked to do here as righteous. So it's reverse. I mean, if I'm allowed to say. So homosexuality is part of that type of ritual in those type of groups. So it defiles.
See, this is the thing that I think most of us miss. When you find a great suppression of females in a community or a society or culture, you find a huge amount of homosexual activity that's under the rug, that's kept behind the scenes. Huge amount, astronomical. It is no accident that the cover was pulled off the priest. It's no accident. In a culture where females are demeaned to the max, to the point where you have nothing of value to say unless we tell you to say it. It's no accident. So I think the thing that we need to see is not with our eyes, but with the third eye, with the pineal gland. What we need to see, or be able to see, is that by the time what is described as the sexual act takes place in the natural, it is already taking place in the spiritual. This is just a manifestation of it. And if we don't begin to see who we are, put it in the macro so to be picked up in the micro mind, if we don't begin to do that, as we are doing now, at least attempting to do, then nothing ever changes and nothing ever gets balanced again. And the balance to homosexuality, to male homosexuality, is female homosexuality.
Isn't it a choice, just like black magic is? It's here, you can do it, but it's your choice to partake in it. We have male and female qualities, but
I see what you're asking now.
Do you have to do the initial act? I mean, I could be feminine and still
okay, I'm ask you a question.
Relationship with female.
A choice. I do not believe that a person would choose to be verbally dehumanized, discriminated against, called all kinds of verbal names, beaten to death, threatened, ostracized from their family. I don't believe anyone would choose to do that. Now, I had to look at homosexuality differently than I had in the beginning. Because in the beginning, I was no different than any other, especially male, who found it as one of the most detestable things on the face of the earth. Until we began to look at it from a spiritual perspective. And what helped me do that is that one of our children was in college, and one of the guys who went to school with her had been rejected by his family when they found out he was homosexual. Guess when they did it? Right at Christmas. That's when everybody goes home from school. That's when everybody expects to be with family. And they tell him to come home. So what we said, bring him to our house. We'll be his parents. That's when I had my epiphany. That's when I began to think differently and understand that this thing has ramifications to it that I'm not seeing. My God, it took, what, 10, 15 years before I see what I'm seeing now? From that point of the epiphany to now, I'm just now beginning to see it. So when you say, do I think it's a choice? I don't. I think that there is such a compelling desire to act this out until the person finds it very difficult, if not impossible, to resist it. And it's not about them being despicable. It's not about them being detestable. It's about them being in your face. This is what needs correcting. So I really, at one time, I would have agreed with everyone that it is until I began to look at what they had to go through. It is no more of a choice, in terms that I believe anyway, of a choice than anyone would have chosen to be lynched in South Carolina or in Georgia. You didn't choose to be lynched, but it happened because of how you were born. So I don't.
But it's a pleasure, both male and female, and
I agree.
It's a test. And if you choose to have the pleasurable of yourself as a male in that area, I mean, that's a choice. But we can't sit here and say that in the spiritual world versus this world, we got to deal with it differently. But in the spiritual world, what is God saying is no different than practicing witchcraft. I mean, you don't have to do that. You choose to do that.
The difference, though,
right,
is that, remember we talked about this being the illusion and this physical being the mirror of the spiritual. What it says is that there are some imbalances spiritually. The difference is the way that we choose to approach it and deal with it. We choose to say, regardless, that individual has a spark of divinity, as do we all, and that we are called not to be judgmental, but to love.
No, I'm saying embrace it. I mean, you can't do anything about it, but I'm saying, is it right or wrong?
Take us to the 30,000 feet.
Exactly.
Not.
I can't get rid of my son if that's his choice. I mean,
exactly.
I have to deal with it. But I'm saying in a sense, an aspect of homosexuality and black magic. Is it right or is it wrong? I mean, you can't straddle the fence on it, but you got to deal with it. You got to make a choice.
I saw a hand over here.
Yeah, that is very correct. You do have to make a choice. The thing about the choice is our whole sense of right and wrong is not based in reality.
But no, we're talking about what God says. I mean, does God approve of homosexuality?
Well, how do you know that?
It's written.
Okay.
On what we don't know.
Let me deal with what we do know. Let me deal with what we do know. If we want to bring it to the earth realm, let's just deal with it. And the reality of it is the church is responsible for homosexuality.
Ouch.
I mean, if you really want to deal with it, let's just deal with it. The church is responsible for homosexuality. Go to Romans, it's 1:20, I believe it is. When you look at Romans, and it talks about men having affection for men and women having affection for women, if you read the precursor to those verses, what you will find, the scripture says, it came as a result of them exchanging the truth for a lie. So who is the one responsible for truth? The church. So the church chose to buy into a lie. And as a result of that, men began to have affection for men, and women began to have affection for women. Please go to Romans and read that.
Can I just ask one last question?
Yes, sir. No. Please understand it. You don't have to change the subject.
Because I got enough. That's enough. It's more than enough for me. But scientifically, has it been proven, like scientifically, the stories of the Bible in Sodom, was it actually proven that Sodom existed? Like, I think they proved that there's salt over there. Lot's right turn.
Okay.
A little salt. And I'm talking about scientifically. I think they started exploring. Oh, okay. Sodom actually existed?
Yes, it did. But guess what?
Oh, no.
Sodomy also exists between heterosexuals.
Okay.
So, our lack of understanding of homosexuality is the exact same place our understanding of heterosexuality is. See, we think we understand it because we are it, but we do not understand and mean what we are. So when we act what we consider to be natural in our heterosexuality, are we doing something that is in line with what the Creator intends, or are we doing what we think is right based on how we naturally feel? So far be it for us to judge someone else for doing what they naturally feel is right without understanding the reality of what that it actually is. Because we feel and act a certain way, or I would feel and act a certain way towards a woman out of my male desire for a woman. But what is that? Like, where is that coming from? My own ego is informing me of what I think is correct. And that same could be said. Yeah.
Can I just tell everybody I just want to be socially accepted. Will you still accept me if I was gay?
Of course.
Yes.
Well, God, let me ask you this question: will God accept me?
If God did not accept you because you were gay, He would not be the Creator.
Can you go to hell because you're gay?
I got you.
So,
I'm sorry.
I was about to say.
I'm trying to come out, but y'all won't let me.
No, this really is important. You can't imagine how important it is, because the very discussion of it begins to balance the spiritual, so that you begin to see things change in the physical. I still got you. So don't be sorry for the questions or the discussion.
I'm enjoying myself.
I know you're
So I was going to say, you're asking is it right or wrong? It may depend on how you look. Well, it depends on how you look at it, I think. And then if you take it to the extreme,
don't tell me you are.
well, if you take it to the extreme, let's say all males got together with only males, all females got together with only females, then there would be no babies, and the species would end, come to an end.
Well, that's my common sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Common sense.
And that's real common sense.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
is it then that question might be: is it right for a species to come to an end or to keep going?
Well, and see, we're talking scientifically and not spiritually. Listen to Romans 1:24. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, those who change the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, the creature's materialism, who is blessed forever. Amen. Because for this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. That's saying that because they exchanged the truth for a lie, this came into being. This is the result of it. This is the part of chapter 1. This is the part of the scripture that no one wants to deal with. We want to deal with all the condemnation, but we and I'm not talking about you, Keith, but I'm talking about the church at large. Religion doesn't want to address it. And quite frankly, we cannot address what's manifested in the place where it's manifested. We have to address it at its origin. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
The thing that keeps coming up in me is, I say ye are gods.
I think what Pastor is saying is we created it in the spiritual a long time before it manifested in the physical. So if we are the gods, if we create this reality, then we did it. We created it.
So we have the opportunity to recover this truth that is exactly what we're doing today. Putting it back in the macro, and things can be balanced.
And because we did it first in the spiritual before it manifested in the physical, we have to go back and undo it in the spiritual before it can manifest in the physical.
I'm sorry, I didn't see what you were doing first.
All of us have agreed that every individual has both a mixture of feminine and masculinity. Is that correct?
But that's cool. We're talking about the act. That man can get just as much pleasure.
It's not just that, though.
But so if as gods, the only thing we're doing, which is the same thing that Jesus did, is becoming different experiences and awareness of ourselves as we actually explore our free will to find ourselves and to find out who we are. The only thing we're doing is becoming aware of who we are. Is not homosexuality the same exact thing for being on the opposite end of the spectrum as a male who is not in touch with his feminine side, none whatsoever, being on that side to the far left, or being homosexual, which is the exact opposite, just being to the far right? Are those two individuals looked at upon in the same light? I think it's just because of how we look at our society that we say that one is despicable, whereas the other person on the other end, which is super masculine, he has a problem, but it's not that big. It's not looked upon as being so bad. But both individuals are just exercising their free will.
So let me ask you about sodomy, not a damnation in the Bible, without physical or
Sodomy, not a...
sodomy, just in that area.
Well, the thing is, the entire Bible, people look at it as being just plain material. But it has nothing to do with material. It has to do with things that actually go on in your heart, or things that are spiritual. Therefore, say for example, if you were just, I don't want to say a vegetable, but let's say you could perform no physical activity whatsoever. Are you rightfully wrong or bad in any of your thoughts, etc.? Because basically when you look at it from the point of the Bible being just completely material, as long as you cannot move, you cannot be right or wrong.
See, the act. You were asking about the act, right? The physical act that you get pleasure from, right? I'm asking. Okay?
I'm just saying I understand about the feminine quality, but we're talking about what's right and wrong.
The physical act. The physical act, yes.
I mean, you can have feminine qualities, but
the act.
Is a different story.
But the physical act takes place. The act takes place long before it's manifested in the physical. Even in a heterosexual relationship, it takes place long before it manifests in the physical. So if it takes place before it manifests in the physical, where does it take place? It takes place in your thoughts, right? And if it takes place in your thought, it's taking place in the spiritual. Now it's manifested. Okay, when you ask if God will send you to hell, that's a whole new discussion about what the scriptures say hell is. That hell is absolutely, positively, unequivocally nothing that we have been taught that it is when we look at the scripture. And as bad as the Greek is in its translation of the New Testament, even from the Greek you can deduce that hell is a production of the Milton's Inferno, but not the scriptures. Our concept of hell is based upon Milton's Inferno and not the scriptures. Dante, I'm sorry, Dante's Inferno, but not the scripture. Thank you for this.
Which has even been admitted recently by the late John Paul, and these are concepts that indigenous peoples all across the world already know. And so when we talk about how things will actually change for what heaven and hell is, heaven and hell is actually a state of which you actually live. It's not a place that you go to after death.
Let me get Ron before we go off into the hell.
I want to talk about the judgment parts of it. We see the destination before we enjoy the journey. We never get to enjoy the journey because all we see is the destination. And you know, we've been doing this since we were kids. You're 10, you want to be 12. You're 12, you want to be 15. And we've grown up doing that. And this religion tells us that we need to keep our eyes on heaven and hell. What about the destination? I mean, the journey. The danger in this is we should not make these judgments while we're on the journey. I look at my family. I got homosexuals. I got drug addicts. I got wife beaters. Now, what do I do with that? You see what I mean? So, do I stop loving them? Do I make judgments and put them aside? No. My strive is to be enlightened. And you know what? Although some of them don't have anything to do with me at times, when they have a problem, they come to me. You see what I'm saying? So that's the journey I'm talking about. I don't judge them. Unless somebody comes to me and asks me a specific question about it, then we'll talk. But you let them make the judgments about themselves based on seeing you in your life. They'll make that judgment. They'll see that. They'll see that. How many times have you had somebody in your life that you look up to, and you start patterning yourself after them without even thinking about it? Let them make the judgment. When we make the judgment, we stifle creativity. Without creativity, there is no growth. And that's the problem with religion now. So, you know, it is out there, but the danger is deciding who's going to heaven, who's going to hell, what God. Don't worry about that. Just live your life. Want to do what's right. That's it. Just want to do what's right. Set your course on that, and that's it. If we can do that, that takes care of itself. Now, we only see male and female images when we talk about homosexuality. What about right here today? If you sitting out there listening and you learn something, that's your female side. You're receiving. You see what I mean? If you're receiving, we interact, we interchange that in us all day, every day.
That's okay.
You see what I mean?
I understand that quality.
So it's there. There's nothing to be afraid of. We're just not aware that it's there.
You just.
I'm talking about sexual acts.
We're getting back up here. There are a couple of other questions. Carla has something else in mind. So, Kathy and then Robbie.
Well, I kind of jump in where I was going to jump in because I want us to be clear on the feminine energy and the male energy that we've been talking about. Because we keep saying we have these feminine traits, and that's what's making us, or at least I'm feeling like we're saying it's those feminine traits that are determining that, oh, all of a sudden you must be homosexual. And I want us to be clear on the spiritual nature of what we're saying when we're talking about Adama, the feminine traits. And Ron was trying to bring that in because it's about being that giver and being that receiver more so than anything. And going all the way back to what we had said earlier, when we were getting to what's right, what's wrong, it has to be an internal journey. Because even with the example that Linda gave earlier about the lady with the speaking in tongues, I think one of the things I said to her after she finished, we almost missed, that was a journey for that lady. Had she thought what the tongues were absolutely wrong, she would never have come to anyone to ask. She had an epiphany for herself that maybe this is something I didn't understand.
Are you saying she said tongues is wrong? Is that what
she was uncomfortable with it?
Oh, okay.
That's what she was saying. Am I getting the right impression? What was she doing? Why did she do that? And so, but in the course of all of that, her final thought was, do you know anything about that? Help me to start this journey. And that's basically what Nick is saying. We've got to get to the point where we've got to start the journey. And it starts with, okay, I've got to come and look inside myself and decide, is this the right thing for me? And if this is not, I'm beginning to understand, and it starts with the quest of truth, uncovering truth. When I begin to understand what truth is, and I begin to understand what feminine energy is and what masculine energy is, then I can begin to reconcile within myself whether or not, oh, I see what God is saying here. But if I want to be narrow-minded, there's a preacher in South Carolina that got in trouble in his own church with the media and the public because he made the declaration that all homosexuals and queers, as he called them, should be put into a pen. A helicopter should fly over, drop food in there, and just let them self-destruct and die out in that pen. That's someone that's supposed to have a message of love and a message of unity, who missed the whole point because of what we're saying in this room right now. They missed the whole understanding of the spiritual journey. And love covers the multitude of sin, and embracing where you are and leading you by example and showing you spiritually who you are. It's very easy to have that tunnel vision and narrow-mindedness, to be very closed-minded and just say right or wrong, black or white, and never have a gray area. But in reality, if truth be told, we all had to have an epiphany at some point to be sitting in this room today. Because if you just look at the literal, as you started earlier, King James Version, we all would be confused and stuck right where we are, because you don't, I have a friend at work, she won't even at this point let you tell her anything outside of King James. If you start to try to explain something to her, she will say, no, 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 and put her fingers in her ears and say, you can't tell me that. But we had a discussion one day, quite by accident, because she thinks it's wrong for a woman to teach. So when I'm trying to tell her something, she doesn't want to hear it. But her mother-in-law passed, and they actually cremated her. Final wishes were to have the ashes spread. And she, in sincerity, looked at me and said, I haven't done that. My husband can't bring himself to do it. It's his mother. I can't bring myself to do it. I'm the daughter of a Baptist, Southern Baptist preacher. And we were taught all these things. And when Jesus comes back, if I scatter her ashes, how will he find her? We laugh.
But it's serious.
But it's pitiful. And it broke my heart, because that's, get what I'm saying? She's been in church her entire life in what we call the church. And that's the limited understanding that she has. And I had to, like, as speaking to a baby, explain little things to her and back off. Because if I begin to open up truth to her, she's going to say, no, 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 that's too far away from what I've been taught. I don't want to know that. So the fact that we're sitting in this room and even having this discussion starts the journey for deeper truth and deeper understanding. So I feel like we almost have to go back and say again, what is the feminine and what is the masculine? Because if I want to just say, I put a little switch in my walk and I bend my wrist, does that make me all of a sudden, and I'm a man doing that? That's not what we're talking about. That is not, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's not the feminine and masculine energies that we're talking about.
That's the distraction.
Distraction.
Right. And we need to get it, not get it twisted as we're sitting here discussing it, because that's not even it at all.
I just want to do this.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. I got Robin who's been holding. And Robin, I want to ask you a question on it. Will this take us to a different subject? Because I also have
I'm just looking at some short question. Comparing to sodomy to sin, the one saying our way or another, I mean, compare sodomy to me mistreating somebody. A sin's a sin in God's eye.
Well, my brother sodomy, two men are a man and a woman. It's sodomy. It's sodomy. Sodomy is sodomy.
So it's like being a little pregnant. How can you be a little bit pregnant?
And I'm saying, a sin's a sin if we're looking at the little or the big.
Sin means to miss the mark. Why do y'all ask me this? Wait a minute. They asked me
me a question and won't let me answer.
All the teachers coming out and all of us saying, I would say
Sin, there's several different definitions for sin, depending on how far back you go to the root. And that's what we try to do, is go as far back as you can. So that we have, as you remember, I told you about the layers of the onion, the layers of the onion and peeling back. Well, some of us might just get past the first layer. And that's the truth at that layer. But the more you peel back, the more you can understand more of it. Well, one definition of sin is to miss the mark. To miss the mark. Miss the mark means, okay, if I miss the mark and I'm an archer, I miss the mark. What do? Woe is me. I can't shoot anymore? Or do I just adjust my aim until I hit it? Another one has to do with being entangled with what? I forgot. Just entanglement. Entanglement in general. It's entanglement. And entanglement, just think of threads that you know, you have about 10 strands of threads, but they get so tangled that you can't do anything with them, and they are not useful for what it is you need those threads to do. Sin is the same kind of thing. It can be viewed as the same kind of thing. So that's just two definitions, two perspectives about sin. There are others. There may be others that we've not even gotten to the root of yet. Judgment can be perceived as that. And so the bottom line is, if we're called to do anything, it is to know that God is love, to love God, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. And you can keep the judgments, keep them to yourself. And I'm not being facetious. I'm saying that we have a responsibility. We're literally charting the course for spiritual correction. And one of the things that happens so quickly in the physical is we are so quick to want to put people in the boxes of our cultural reality. And what we do in one culture may be right in another culture, because that culture defines that way. We want to get beyond the bounds of culture reality and cultural definitions of what is right and wrong, and simply say, what am I called to do? I'm called to manifest my Creator wherever I am. And if I do that, I promise you change will occur. There is no way it cannot. I promise you it will. So that if we concentrate on that, instead of the other aspect of the distractions of how people define this, or how people define that, or how a culture defines something, it keeps us from looking at the mark. It keeps us from looking at our purpose. And we get down in the weeds instead of being above and on the mountaintop, so that we can have a larger perspective of what's going on in general. I have Carla, who's been waiting and deferring with other people for a while. So, Robin, I think you had your question.
Yeah.
Okay. When you made reference to love, you can't vote. Made reference to love. The scripture says that God is love, doesn't it? It's in the New Testament. It says Elohim is love. So if Elohim is love and we are Elohim, then we have to be love. So we are expected to cover a multitude of entanglements. So the entanglements that we are the covering for are unlimited. And regardless of what the entanglement is, we are the covering for it. And the purpose of the covering is to protect, to provide, to nourish, to bring to a place where vision is clear, where you see differently than what you saw previously. That's what covering does. And that's why covering is so vital. Because if the one you submit to as covering does not open himself to or herself to be available to the other realm at all times, even when they're asleep, then They will not be able to protect, to provide, and to nourish. So when we talk about, if we really accept that we are Elohim and we are love, that's what we expect them to do. The word love is ram. And the root for love is a womb. And the reason the root for love is a womb is because a womb is a space for something to enter. So if you are love, you have to create space for entanglements to enter, but you cannot choose the entanglements that enters that space. You deal with the entanglements that come into that space. Does that make sense? So we have an awesome responsibility, and the responsibility is awesome because we have to be strong enough to resist the urge to judge. But even in resisting the urge to judge, when we do that, we have to have others around us who we have confidence in to help guide us to the path that we just deviated from by virtue of the judgment.
Well, Nick made me remember something that I was taught at an early age about the male, the right side of the brain and the masculine. And I was told, reverse? Okay, I'm going to change my question.
Okay.
Yep. What was it anyway?
Well, I was told that the man is supposed to be on the right side of the woman, sitting, walking, whatever. And I just thought it had some significance too.
Because when a man is in touch with his feminine side, he has the ability to bring light.
Well, can you hear you?
When a man is in touch with his feminine side, he has the ability to bring light. So the man on the right is symbolic of him being in touch with the right side of him.
See? I was, I think I saw this on CNN. I've seen it more than once. And I saw this the other night, and it's no, it's not coincidence that I looked at this and it got in me before we came here today. I think this group discussion has something to do with that. China. Abortions in China is up 1,000%. Talked to one of y'all about this morning. Now, what's funny about that, they're only killing girl babies. You see? Now, that had to come out. It's been going on for years. There's incentives for birthing boys into the world, but, you're being punished for having girls. And the story that they did was about this mother who was, she's still wailing over the fact that her husband killed their daughter. And he's not being punished for it. He wanted a son. And she was just proud of her baby, And, we look at that. The good part about it, as terrible as that sounds, the good part is that we are aware of it. The world is being made aware of it. The consciousness in that area for mankind is about to ripen. You see what I mean? So we need to bring balance to this. And it's not just that. That had to happen so that discussions like this and other people can be, find that detestable and do something about this. Because it's not just in China. We don't respect women, period. And I say we, I mean the male species. And even, the discussion that we're having, all of this is all about bringing balance in the narrative. And that's why, I think everybody has said, whether we're talking about this or anything else, the judgments have to stop. We have to. If we're going to grow, if we're going to continue to be creative and continue on this journey, like I say, there's no coincidence, and it's not just my family. I bet you everything you detest you can find in your own. Or somebody close in you, that you care about. That's no coincidence. But now you got to look at this thing in a new light. as I told you, we were walking. We had a great time this morning, by the way. But one of the things I said to you, you go down south, you see all of these people walking with these babies, these little brown babies. You know, the very thing that they detested is different now. So you gotta look at things a little differently now, and that all of this
people walking around babies.
Yeah. So that's all I just want to say. When we realize that my thing is to get the journey right for me, to be enlightenment for me, and you know, and when I do that, I help everybody else. I rely on this group. There are people in my world that rely on me, and I recognize that the journey is important. The journey is important. We miss that. Religion has taught us to look at the destination and not the journey.
I got you. Give me 1 second. Out of this discussion, I think the thing for us to remember is that we are mirrors for, other people are mirrors for us, and we are mirrors for them. And so when there are issues and when we see things, what you were going to say? When we see it's a distraction. When we see things and when we have questions, just remember, it's for me. It is for you. It is for me. Whatever the issue is, it is something that we have to deal with inside ourselves. And so the issue out of this conference today is, are we going to walk in the character of the one who gave us life and birth, or not? That's the issue. Without all the distractions, are we going to do that? I got this gentleman that I get you.
I saw something on YouTube the other day relating to abortions. It was a lady, it was in the United States, and she was having a discussion, I don't know if it was Planned Parenthood or somebody, about whether to abort or not. They were going to wait till they find out whether it's a female or not. If it was a female, then she was going to have an abortion. So it's not only in China, it's here too. And it might be like one of those discussions just kept under the rug or something like that, but it has to be big because they talk about it, a lot. And if it was a female, then she was going to have an abortion, with the baby. So.
But understand, I got you, Denise, and Pastor, I got you, Pastor Kathy. Understand that that's getting into the weeds and stuff. That is only a reflection and a distraction for us to take us away from the bigger picture of what we should be looking at. It's this generic imbalance. And it has nothing to do with gender. I think Ron started. It has nothing to do with me being a woman and you being a man.
Well, the females must be buying into it also.
They are, unfortunately. I got Kathy, and then I've got, I think it was Nick, Denise, and anybody else? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Pastor. We got
Speaker saying, I think when you look at Job, you said the thing out here, the most is what's comes on me. Fear and dread are those things that causes us to live as mere men. And the things that we fear, the reason you're seeing the very things they hated, like the brown little babies, is because we don't realize that we create these things out of our fear and out of our dread. Those are the very things we make happen in our own lives. Because like Pastor said earlier, and like we have on the board, if all the spiritual speech, that which I meditate upon, I bring it into a reality. And I don't even realize that. And that's why it's so important for us to understand, going back to what we started hours ago, we are the Elohim of the earth, but we will die as mere men if we don't learn how to change everything and quit meditating on things so much as a physical. That the physical, what we see, is a manifestation of what we think. And when we get that down in our minds and the way we're thinking and start to change the very way we think, then we change what we see in this realm. And that is how you become the Elohim, or actually, I hate to say become the Elohim because we are the Elohim. That is how you be, as a sense of being the I am. That is how we are the Elohim. And until we begin to understand that,
we continue to create the very thing that we dread and do not want.
Janice and Pastor.
I'm good.
Pastor Chappelle.
You
all?
Couple of things. When we're talking about, Barb was talking about earlier, people in other cultures and how we make snap judgments based on our culture. Well, first of all, if we look carefully, we will find that I think it was like 6 or 7 sons that Abraham had. It was Isaac and Ishmael, and then after Sarah died, he had 5 others. Some more sons by Keturah, and most people don't know that. But the point is that it says that, and he gave them gifts and sent them into the east. The gifts that he gave them it was not silver and gold. The gift that he gave them and sent them into the east was a spiritual understanding of the Creator. And those gifts manifested as Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. So all of it came from the same root. So when you read, is it the Veda, the Hindu book of holy book, or when you read the Buddhist, the Book of the Dead, one of them, you read things like that, you begin to see the same thing you see in the scriptures. The same words is there. But what we have done is built a wall around our child. And anything that comes across that wall that doesn't look like us is not right. As opposed to taking the opportunity to explore it and see, what is it saying? What is it talking about? And then we will find out that we have more in common than we have in terms of differences. The other thing is, when we talk about love, the scripture says, love your enemy. Well, loving your enemy means that the one who you think is your enemy is someone who needs something from you. So that person who appears to be your enemy is actually a womb for you to deposit in. And the thing that you're supposed to deposit in that womb is love. So that's the essence of that particular beatitude. And the last thing is that, the other thing, because that's not the last one. The other thing is, this morning I was looking at CNN, and then they flashed the local news. When it went to local news, it was talking about a boycott against Hershey School because they refused to admit a kid who was HIV positive. And immediately I remember the history of the Hershey School. Before the late 60s, if you were African American, you couldn't go to the Hershey School because the trust was set up for only Caucasian. So discriminatory practices don't change because the law changes. Discriminatory practices only change when attitude changes. Attitudes don't change until people on the spiritual journey recognize how to change them. And the way that we began to change attitudes is by changing our own. When our attitudes begin to change, then the prevailing energy is light. Because no matter how dark the room is, if you strike a match, you can see the match in the midst of all the darkness. So when our attitudes begin to change and become attitudes not only of enlightenment, but attitudes with a sincere, deep desire for enlightenment, then other attitudes began to change. Now, we talked earlier about Elohim, and Kathy mentioned it, and it brought it back to me again. We talked about the manifestation of male energy, nurture male energy. Let's talk about, for a moment, if I may, the manifestation of the awareness of Elohim. It says that, and I'm in the 82nd Psalm, it says, God standing in the congregation of the mighty, he judges among the gods. That's Elohim. Is judging, is making decisions. He is professing his will. Because he judges means to make his will known. And he's making his will known to the Elohim. And it says, these are the questions that he raises. How long will you judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? In other words, how long will you judge unjustly and accept unrightness or accept darkness? He said that we are to defend the poor and the fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and the needy, deliver the poor and the needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. Those who are being taken advantage of, we support them. No, they know not, neither will they understand. In other words, they walk in darkness and they're not even aware of it. So our objective is to be the light in the midst of that darkness. Then it says that all the foundations, this is the one that gets me, all the foundations of the earth are out of course. That is saying that all the foundational thoughts, everything that their earthly consciousness is based upon is out of course, is out of sorts, is off balance, is traveling in the wrong direction. I have said, on the heels of that, that's when he says, I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. What is he saying? These things need to be corrected, and you are the only one who can bring that correction. He said, but you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. If you don't make these corrections, if we don't make these corrections, we will be no different than any other man who came into this earth and made judgments on other people, which actually proliferated the whole idea of separateness. What it did, it put a broader gap between who we think we are as opposed to who we are labeling other people to be. So when we start talking about Elohim, it is difficult. And you heard, Catherine, when we've been talking about this, look at how she struggled with saying it. I talked to George on the phone. Look at how you struggle with saying it. The reason we struggle with it is because we have not become totally comfortable with it, and that's understandable based upon our history. Not only have we not come uncomfortable with it, but we have not come to a place where we understand what that means. We are struggling to. We want to. So if we are at that place of struggling to understand it, if we are at that place where it's a bit uncomfortable saying it, where is everyone else? And if they are there, it is not up to us to look down on them, but it is incumbent upon us to deal with people where they are and not necessarily make them feel comfortable in their darkness, but make them feel comfortable with the answers we give them, so they have a desire to come out of their darkness. And that is pretty much what this 82nd Psalm is about. And if I were one who did not totally believe and trust what we are doing, I would be here. It would totally be a waste of time for any of us, I should say, and you as well. If the desire to understand, to grow, to move forward was not there. So, having said that, I nor anyone at this table, or for that matter, hopefully in this room, want anyone to feel like any question should not be asked. Because if we're sitting around this table and you ask us a question, and none of us have an understanding of it, you can cool believe we're going to find it someplace. And we will get in contact with you, one way or the other. But thus far, the Creator has brought us into situations where the questions that were asked, He had already prepared us for them. So when the idea of love arises, understand that even on the natural, in physical love, Love is about an interpersonal relationship being infused by the affection of love itself, by the emotion rather of love. So what I'm saying is that love on the earthly plane is also you making space for the affection that's being directed toward you. And one of the issues that we have that keeps us in a place of judgment is that we have more confidence and more experience with desiring to be loved than we do with loving. Can you see that? We would talk about what someone is not doing for us, but they say they love me, as opposed to not even being concerned about that, but concern yourself totally with loving. Can you see that? So we have to have a paradigm shift. Instead of being on a quest to find love, we are on a quest to be loved. Not love, but love itself.
I just wanted to mention the flip side of it that some of us struggle with as well. I wanted to mention the flip side of it that some of us struggle with as well, where you won't allow, you won't accept love, and you can't. It won't work either way. Like, you have to be willing to participate in both giving and receiving in order for it to work.
And why is it that something as valuable, something as soothing, something as deeply desired as love, why is it there are people who don't want to receive it? There has to be an ingrained reason for that. And if you really give some thought to it, I truly believe that the reason people have trouble accepting love is because they have a sense of having been dehumanized, and it's impossible for them to see themselves as being worthy of being a woman for the love that's being offered.
When you want to speak on this,
I wanted to talk a little bit about say love. Love has to be caring, and it's like we've got the way we care about one another. I'll use Canada as an example. I have noticed, I don't care where we go, where we are, Kathy will make a friend. We got on the elevator this morning, and these two people got on there, and they said, "Good morning, how are you all?" They immediately struck up a conversation. Are you all here for a conference? You know, then they invited us on a bus trip, you know, take a tour with them and everything. We got in the, when they came and picked us up from the airport yesterday, the guy that came and picked us up, Kathy act like she had known him for years. We go in the store, she picks up people shopping with her. You know, I'm like, what is this? So one Sunday, we were in church, and Pastor was talking about how we don't even make eye contact with each other anymore. So I began, I said, okay, I'm going to try this thing. When I see people, I'm going to look at them, smile, and see what happens. Okay, I go in the store, and I looked at this lady one day, and I smiled at her, and she just immediately started talking. I'm like, whoa, there's something to this. You know, we don't connect with each other. We don't look at each other. We don't talk to each other. You know, you walk up to somebody and you say, good morning. Good morning. Well, you know, if you show forth that love, and I'm like, man, Kathy might be on to something. She had a bottle of something, you know, sell it. But that's what I'm trying to get people to see. That we don't care about each other. You know, we just like, we're in our own little world. And if you're not a part of it, I'm not letting you in it. And that's one thing that we need to change. We need to, you know, start showing people a smile. You don't know what people are going through. And if you just smile at them, they're like, hey, somebody really cares. You know, you don't have to say a word, with that energy that you have, you smile at the person and say, hey, you just made my day, you know. And that's something that we need to look at.
I think this morning when we were at the Hereford College at the Trail. That's something that we had talked about early. Energy flows as our attention goes. And what happened was everybody that we encountered, I believe for the most part, I didn't see anyone that had any kind of negative energy, but everyone that we saw, and even vice versa, because we was giving love, we was receiving it, but it was like good morning. You know what I mean? But it was just before you even came in close proximity, it was that vibration that you could see was just drawn, that it was just love. You know what I mean? In terms of just seeing, what people do, what they talked about, and something I just wanted to share in terms of what Ron and the rest of us experienced this morning. There were 6 of us, and we had stopped at this root of a ton of trees. But anyway, at the foundation of it, it made me think about the foundation. And I was, talking to Ron, and he had pointed out to me that there was a center of the root of this.
The tap of the root, You can see where all the vines underground, and this is the root. You can't see it from this picture. It doesn't look like the same root, but that's an uprooted tree. And you can see where all the under here are all coming toward the center. And half of this is still under the ground. You can see where it all comes together, and the tap is still in the ground. And I wanted to get to the front of it to see if it's still breathing. All it was laying there, I wanted that tree was still breathing. The tap is still in the ground.
But sometimes when we're right up on something, we can't really see it the way that when you're able to see it from a distance. But I think that, again, for me, I think the proof of desire is in the pursuit. And if we're pursuing love, if we desire love, if we're giving love, I think it's just, again, that energy and that vibration that, we have to, be conscious about in terms of how we, communicate to others. And I know that, for those who came, today, especially from Philly, I'm extremely pleased because I believe that there's a desire for us to seek the truth. You know what I mean? And not being judgmental, but all of us bring different energy. And I think by being open, we're coming to a point that, especially here in Philadelphia, you just got, sometimes depending on where you are, you can just tell where there's just darkness, there's, that plight of just not knowing who you are. And I think the more that we can appreciate that we all are one, yet many, but at the same time beginning to appreciate who we are. So a lot of times when we refer to I am, it's the I am presence, the God in action that you are, that we are. And being able to appreciate how can we be a light, in this time where we know that the enemy or the darkness or the concept of the enemy, the devil, but at the same time, again, if there's no enemy within, there's no enemy on the outside that can harm you if you really know who you are. And so we're in a deeper sense of really trying to seek that. So I know tomorrow, Saturday night, James, I don't know if it's the right time, but if you want to, we're going to continue the dialogue.
Yes.
But at the same time, tomorrow night at 8th and Diamond. Saturday night. Okay, the parsonage. Okay, we'll be at the parsonage tomorrow night. And so we want to encourage it. And I know that we had said that, all of us are here are welcome to invite your family and friends.
What time?
This will be at 8 o'clock, because I know we're going to the Amish. We'll be out, by the time we get back, 8 o'clock, we'll have a chance to get back together. And I think this is important, where a lot of people was not able to make it, because some people was not able to take off their jobs.
Can I say something?
Saturday is a good night.
If you want to start it earlier, we want to go to Amish country, but we don't have to spend our lifetime all day tomorrow. Our primary objective for being here is this. That's it. So, if you want to do it earlier, we would do it earlier. But, we can go to Amish country.
Or not.
Or not, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, this is our primary objective. This is too important for us to move away from.
And I think everybody's here comfortable, especially for me, but I know that there's been several, of us that's been meeting and coming together. And this is an important time, to ask questions. I don't want anybody to feel as though I can't ask something that I really feel that I need to ask. This is the time you know, just to feel comfortable, because I think as we begin to get more closer, you know, we all are one. But I just want to make sure nobody leaves feeling as though, you know what I mean, I wish I would have asked.
Right, yeah.
Please,
that's what we need. We need more time, George, let's do it. So give us the time for...
I have on here and then we'll wrap up.
Well, this is something I want to take because I think it's important. A while back, it seemed like eons ago, Pastor mentioned the man in the trance, and he did not elaborate. So, what is the trance? Is he still in the trance, and what is the results? What do we get from that?
Okay, he's still in the trance because it doesn't say he woke up. If you go to 15 chapter of Genesis and read Abraham, he also went in the trance. Same words they used there when he was put to sleep and passed, and when they passed through the part, you know, the covenant that was made there. Both of those words are the same for trance. What came out as a result of the trance is that we live in a world of illusions. None of the stuff that we see is real. The real stuff is the spiritual. And it is incumbent upon us not to escape the trance, but to desire to the depth where the third eye opens. And meaning the third eye by virtue of that, I'm talking about the pineal gland. That's the physical manifestation of the third eye. And if you read the writings of Jesus, when he make reference to the eye, it doesn't say eyes. He said, if your eye is dark, then your whole body is dark. When you look at Genesis, when you make reference to eye, it does not say, and their eyes were open. It's translated in every edition of the Bible, every version, as, and their eyes were open, and they saw, and they were ashamed. That's not what it says. The word there is ayin, and ayin is eye. Single eye. It says, and their eye was open. So when they got spiritual insight, they began to see what they could and could not do, and they chose to accept what was beneficial to them. And of course, there's more depth to that. And if we choose to, that tomorrow we can, you know, pick up from that and move forward with it. But we are still in that train.
We've got another group coming at 4 o'clock for that, I understand. So whatever we need to do to help get set up so that they have the opportunity of enjoying this beautiful space as we had, let's do that. And so tomorrow, I guess we'll get more instructions later. When we start. Thank you for your participation today, but we expect no less tomorrow. And I don't mean the questions. The questions have to be asked. So thanks so much.
And let's do this.